I couldn't keep pretending. By the third morning of the strange texts, I looked like a ghost of myself. Anna tried again to corner me in her cafe, but I brushed her off with weak excuses. It wasn't fair. She deserved honesty. But something in me resisted, terrified of speaking Andrew's name aloud, as if that alone would summon him. Peter, though. Peter was different. That afternoon, he stopped by with another batch of photos. They were mostly candid shots of town life, kids riding bikes, the bakery at dawn, Anna laughing mid-conversation. His gift was freezing moments I'd never noticed, pulling beauty out of the ordinary. He lingered as Timothy sketched at the sewing table, humming to himself. I pretended to sort fabric, but my mind wasn't on colors or patterns. It was on the phone burning in my pocket, another unread message waiting. Peter studied me for a long moment. You've been jumpy. More than usual. I stiffened. I'm just tired. Lois, he said softly. I've seen tired. This is fear. Something in his voice, steady, unjudging, broke through my defenses. I turned, gripping the edge of the table. What would you do, I whispered, if someone from your past wouldn't let you go? His expression shifted, like he understood more than I'd said. I'd tell someone I trust. Because secrets eat you alive faster than the truth ever will. My chest tightened. He wasn't pressing, but the invitation was there. And suddenly, I couldn't hold it back anymore. It's Andrew, I blurted. My husband. My throat constricted. He wasn't kind. Not to me, not to Timothy. I thought I left him behind, but he's found us. Or maybe it's someone else working with him, I don't know. There's a car. Messages. Warnings. Peter's jaw clenched, but not in shock. In recognition. I know, he said quietly. The room tilted. You what? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I didn't know the details. But I knew something wasn't right. The way you flinched at loud noises. The way Timothy hesitates around men. I've seen it before. My breath caught. In your family? In my past, he said simply, not offering more. I don't need the whole story, Lois. But I need you to know you're not crazy. If someone's following you, if Andrew's a threat, you're not imagining it. Tears blurred my vision. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to believe me. Before I could respond, Timothy piped up. Mommy, look. He held up his drawing, me at the sewing machine, Peter with his camera, Anna holding a paintbrush, Timothy standing between us. Above it, in shaky letters, he'd written, My family. The sight gutted me. He was building a world where he felt safe, and I was still dragging the shadows of the old one behind us. Peter crouched beside Timothy, smiling warmly. That's a masterpiece, buddy. Then he looked up at me, eyes steady. We'll keep him safe. I wanted to believe him. That night, when Timothy was asleep, I finally opened the latest text. He's closer than you think. My hand shook as I showed it to Peter. Do you think it's Andrew? Peter studied the screen, his brow furrowed. Could be. But the wording, it feels like someone else. Someone who knows him. Maybe even someone who wants to help you. The thought hadn't occurred to me. Could my stalker be a savior? Or was that just wishful thinking? Peter must have read the doubt on my face. Either way, Lois, we can't ignore this. Tomorrow we start digging. Quietly. If Andrew's circling, we need to know before he makes his move. For the first time, I felt the faintest spark of strength. Not because the fear had lessened, but because I wasn't alone in it anymore. Still, as I lay awake listening to Timothy's soft breathing, one question haunted me. If Peter knew my ghosts so well, what ghosts was he still hiding? I thought I'd feel lighter after telling Peter about Andrew. In some ways, I did. The weight of silence had been crushing me, and sharing even part of it let me breathe again. But relief was a fragile thing. The texts kept coming, and Peter's quiet promise to help stirred a new kind of tension. What if digging into Andrew only pulled us deeper into his shadow? Start small, Peter said the next morning, sliding a steaming cup of coffee across Anna's counter toward me. Old public records, property, business filings. Anything that leaves a paper trail. I sipped the bitter liquid, my nerves crackling. And if Andrew notices? He won't, Peter said firmly. Not if we're careful. Besides, a man like that doesn't expect people to look under the surface. He counts on fear to keep you still. Anna wandered over, catching the tail end of his words. What's this about? I froze, but Peter covered smoothly. I'm helping Lois with some family paperwork. Old records. You know how confusing that stuff can be. Anna raised a brow, clearly unconvinced, but she let it slide. Later, at the town's tiny library, Peter and I hunched over one of the ancient computers that wheezed every time we clicked. Public records weren't glamorous, but Peter had a way of turning even dry documents into clues. Look at this, he murmured, pointing at the screen. Andrew transferred money to an account in another town 6 months ago. Not in his name. In Claire's. My stomach flipped. His mother. Yes. But she was already in hospice by then, wasn't she? I nodded, memories of Claire's frail smile flashing in my mind. She could barely hold a pen. Exactly, Peter said. So why would Andrew be funneling money under her name? The thought made my blood run cold. If Andrew was hiding money, what else was he hiding? We dug further, scrolling through endless property listings and tax records until Peter cursed softly. What is it? I whispered. He leaned closer to the screen. There's a warehouse. Registered in Claire's name, just outside the county line. Abandoned on paper, but taxes are still being paid. Not by her estate. By someone else. Andrew, maybe. Or someone tied to him. I pressed a hand to my mouth. The anonymous text echoed in my head. Asterisk, he's not the only one watching. He's closer than you think. Asterisk. Could this warehouse be part of it? A place where Andrew, or whoever was helping him, operated from? Before I could say more, the library lights flickered. Just a power surge, maybe, but the unease in my chest tightened. We shut down the search and left quickly, the late afternoon air heavy with the threat of rain. On the walk back, Peter stopped me. Lois, if that warehouse is connected, we need to check it. Carefully. Not alone. Peter. No, he said firmly. I'm not letting you walk blind into his mess. If Andrew's circling, we need proof. That's the only way to get ahead of him. I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew he was right. Still, fear knotted in my stomach. Andrew had always been good at making me feel powerless. Even now, miles away, he controlled the rhythm of my heart. That night, another text came. You're looking in the wrong places. I stared at it until my hands shook. Whoever was sending these messages, they knew what I was doing. They knew about the search. I showed Peter, and he studied the screen with narrowed eyes. This isn't random. Someone's close. Close enough to know what we've been digging into. My mind reeled. The library. The cafe. The workshop. Where was I safe if every move was being watched? Peter's voice broke through my panic. Lois, listen. Whoever this is, they're playing a game. They want you scared, second-guessing yourself. But fear won't protect Timothy. Truth will. I nodded shakily, clutching my phone like a lifeline. But as I lay awake that night, one thought pressed harder than the rest. If the texts weren't from Andrew, then who had eyes on me close enough to know every step I took? And why did it feel like they were already inside my life, waiting for me to stumble? Peter was the one who said it out loud. We have to see the warehouse. The words made my stomach lurch, but I didn't argue. The texts were growing bolder, more precise. Whoever was behind them knew we were digging, and the warehouse was the one lead we had. 2 days later, after dropping Timothy at Anna's cafe, she thought he was just spending the afternoon sketching. I found myself in Peter's truck, heading toward the county line. The farther we drove, the more the landscape shifted. Lush fields giving way to empty stretches, long-forgotten barns sagging against the horizon. The warehouse appeared like a bruise against the sky. It was larger than I expected, a squat rectangle of faded metal siding, the paint peeling in sheets. The gravel lot was cracked and sprouting weeds, but Peter pointed at the ground. Fresh tire tracks. My pulse spiked. We parked a little way off and approached on foot. Every step crunched too loudly on the gravel. My throat was dry, and I half expected Andrew to step out of the shadows at any second. The door wasn't locked. That was almost worse. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with dust and faint oil. Shafts of light cut through gaps in the siding, catching on old pallets, rusted shelving, and scattered crates. It looked abandoned, except it wasn't. Peter's flashlight beam landed on a folding chair in the center of the concrete floor. Beside it, an empty coffee cup and a fresh pack of cigarettes. "Someone's been here recently," he muttered. I hugged my arms around myself, scanning the shadows. Why here? Why under Claire's name? He shook his head, his expression taut. Could have been Andrew hiding assets. Or something else. Something else. The words prickled like static under my skin. We split up, staying within sight of each other, combing through boxes and cabinets. Most were filled with meaningless junk. Old receipts, bolts, scraps of fabric chewed by mice. But in the back, I found a locked filing cabinet. "Peter." My voice cracked. He hurried over, tugging at the drawer. "No, look." Then with a grunt, he pried it open with a rusted crowbar he'd found nearby. Inside were folders, neatly labeled, dust-free, not abandoned at all. Peter pulled one out and flipped it open. His face hardened. "These are financial statements. Transfers. Large amounts. Some under Andrew's name, some under shell companies." My stomach churned. He was hiding money. Yes. But look, Peter pointed at a name on one of the documents. "This account isn't his. It belongs to someone else." The name meant nothing to me, but the fact that Andrew wasn't working alone chilled me to the bone. Before we could dig deeper, a noise froze us both. A scuff. Somewhere in the shadows. Peter shoved the folder back and pulled me behind a stack of crates. We held our breath as footsteps echoed faintly against the concrete. Slow. Measured. Someone else was in the warehouse. I clutched Peter's arm, my heart thundering so loudly I was sure it would give us away. The footsteps moved toward the center of the room, then stopped. A lighter flicked, and the faint glow illuminated a silhouette. A man sat down on the folding chair. Calm, unhurried. He lit a cigarette and exhaled smoke into the stale air. Peter's grip on my hand tightened, steady but tense. He leaned close, his whisper barely audible. Not Andrew. He was right. Even in the dim light, I could tell the figure was taller, broader, moving with a different weight. Whoever he was, he didn't belong to my past. Or at least, not directly. But he was tied to it. I felt it in my bones. The man sat for a few minutes, smoking in silence, then stood and walked toward the far door. His footsteps faded, then silence settled heavy again. Peter and I didn't move for several minutes, terrified he might circle back. Finally, Peter tugged my hand. We need to go. Now. Back in the truck, my hands were still trembling. That wasn't Andrew. Then who? Peter didn't answer right away. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Someone he's working with. Or someone working against him. Either way, they know this place. They're using it. I pressed my forehead to the window, watching the warehouse shrink behind us. My chest ached with dread. Peter, what if the texts, what if they're not threats? What if they're warnings? He glanced at me, his jaw set. Then we need to find out who's warning you, and why. That night, when I picked up Timothy from Anna's, she asked if I was okay. I lied. Told her I was just tired. But inside, the truth roared louder than ever. The warehouse wasn't empty. Someone was watching. And Andrew wasn't the only ghost chasing me. I couldn't shake the image. That plume of cigarette smoke curling through the dark warehouse, the glow of the lighter briefly sketching out a stranger's profile. Not Andrew. That was the part that haunted me most. If it wasn't him, then who had been sitting there like he owned the place? Peter drove me home in silence that night, his jaw locked tight. Timothy was asleep when I checked on him, his little chest rising and falling steadily, oblivious to the storm brewing outside these walls. I envied him, his innocence, his peace. But I didn't sleep. Every creak of the apartment made me flinch. Every shadow outside the curtains made my breath catch. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another text. You're late. He left already. My throat closed. My eyes flew to the dark window, to the street lamp flickering outside. Someone had known Peter and I were at the warehouse. Someone had seen us. The next morning, I shoved the phone in Peter's hands. He read the message twice, then swore under his breath. So they weren't just guessing. They knew we were there. Do you think it was him? The man smoking? Maybe. Or someone else watching from outside? His brow furrowed. Lois, you need to understand. Whoever's sending these texts, they're close. Too close. He was right. The texts had shifted. No longer vague warnings. They were specific, targeted. They had the timing down to the minute. Anna noticed the shadows under my eyes when I dropped Timothy off at the cafe before opening the workshop. You look like you've been through hell, she said, gently but blunt as always. I forced a weak smile. Just not sleeping well. She studied me for a moment, clearly unconvinced. If you need me, you know I'm here, right? I nodded, though the words stuck in my throat. If I told her the truth, would I be dragging her into the same danger? That afternoon, Peter showed up at the workshop. His presence calmed me, though I could feel his own tension simmering beneath the surface. I pulled the name from those financial records we found, he said quietly. The one tied to the hidden account. And it belongs to a man named Victor Hale, former contractor. Worked with Andrew years ago. Some business deal that went bad. Court filings, accusations of fraud, but no convictions. Victor Hale, I repeated, the name strange on my tongue. So the man at the warehouse could have been him? Could be. He's the right build, the right age. And if he's involved with Andrew, that explains the hidden money. But it doesn't explain the texts. We were interrupted by the sound of the workshop door creaking open. Both of us froze, but it was only Anna bringing Timothy back early, his backpack slung over her shoulder. Still, my heart didn't stop pounding until the door closed again. That evening, Peter and I sat in his truck outside the cafe, Timothy safe inside with Anna for a few minutes. Peter tapped the steering wheel with restless fingers. Lois, if Victor Hill is circling, it changes things. He's not just some shadow. He's real. He's dangerous. And he knows you're watching. I hugged myself, staring out at the neon cafe sign buzzing against the twilight. Why me? Why involve me at all? Peter's voice softened. Because Andrew involved you. And men like Victor don't draw lines. If Andrew owes him, or if they're partners, your leverage. The workshop, the apartment, even Timothy. They're all pieces on a board. I felt sick. The idea of Timothy as a piece in anyone's game made bile rise in my throat. Just then my phone buzzed again. Another text. You're asking the wrong questions. It's not about Andrew anymore. The blood drained from my face. I handed the phone to Peter. His jaw tightened as he read. Then what is it about? I whispered. Peter didn't answer right away. He just stared out the windshield, the muscles in his jaw working, his eyes shadowed with something I couldn't read. Finally, he said, we need to know what Andrew got himself into. Because if it's not just about him, then it's about whoever he tied himself to. And that means it's about you too. I swallowed hard, the weight of it pressing down on me. Andrew wasn't the only ghost chasing me anymore. There was someone else in the smoke, watching, waiting. And for the first time, I realized I might not survive this if I kept waiting for answers to come to me. The name wouldn't leave me. Victor Hill. It rolled through my mind like a riddle with no solution, heavy with menace even though I'd never met him. I told myself names shouldn't have power over me, but this one did. Peter didn't waste time. The next morning, he was at my workshop with his laptop, spreading files and printouts across the sewing table like pieces of a puzzle. I watched him, the light from the window falling across his focused expression. He looked more like an investigator than a mechanic. Victor Hale, he said, tapping a document. Bankruptcy filings. Failed businesses. Every time, he walks away with cash while his partners go under. Andrew was one of those partners. So he ruined Andrew? I asked, the thought both terrifying and oddly comforting. Peter shook his head. Not exactly. They worked together. It looks like Andrew helped him funnel money into shell companies. Then something went wrong. Andrew filed disputes, but nothing ever stuck. Court tossed it all. I rubbed my arms, shivering despite the warmth of the room. So why's he here now? Why the warehouse? Why the texts? That's what doesn't fit, Peter muttered. Victor's smart. He hides behind paper trails. He doesn't show up in person unless. Unless what? Unless he's cleaning up. The words chilled me. I glanced at the door, suddenly desperate for Timothy's laughter to fill the workshop, just to break the tension. But he was still at Anna's. Safe for now. As if the universe wanted to punish me for even thinking he was safe. My phone buzzed. Another text. You should have stayed gone, Lois. My throat closed. My hands trembled as I showed Peter. His face hardened. Gone. I whispered. Does that mean? Peter finished for me. It means Victor knows about you leaving Andrew. And he's not just watching you. He's reminding you he's been watching all along. I felt exposed, raw, like someone had peeled away the thin skin of my new life and revealed just how fragile it was. Peter pushed back from the table, his chair scraping. I'm going to pay him a visit. My heart lurched. What? No. You don't even know where he is. I have an address, Peter said grimly, holding up a printout. One of his listed business fronts. It's only 20 minutes away. I stood, grabbing his arm. Peter, if this man is as dangerous as you think, going to him is suicide. His eyes softened at my desperation, but his voice was steady. Lois, he's already circling you. He knows where you live, where you work. We can't hide from him. The only way to get ahead of him is to step into his world before he steps any deeper into yours. I didn't want to let go. I didn't want him to leave. But I also knew Peter was right. If Victor was tied to Andrew, and if he had his eyes on me, then pretending it would go away was a luxury I didn't have. Peter left that afternoon, promising he'd be careful, promising he'd call. I tried to focus on sewing, on the hum of the machine, but every sound outside the window made me jump. Every customer walking through the workshop door looked like a shadow too sharp, a smile too thin. Hours passed. No word from Peter. When night fell, Anna dropped Timothy off. She took one look at me and frowned. What's wrong? I shook my head quickly, forcing a smile. Nothing. Just a long day. But after she left, I sat on the edge of my bed, Timothy asleep down the hall, and stared at my phone. No messages. No calls. Finally, near midnight, it buzzed. Relief flooded me, until I saw the number. Unknown. The message was short. Peter's asking too many questions. Tell him to stop, or you'll be next. My vision blurred. My whole body went cold. I sank back against the pillows, clutching the phone like it might steady me. Victor Hale wasn't just a name anymore. He was here. He was watching. And now he had Peter in his sights.